Recording.
Sorry.
No problem, just don't mention it.
They weigh 3.5 tons apiece. These gates, and they they're attached to gates, wicket gates, that are under the water, and you never see them. If you ever see them, that means there's not enough water to fill the lock. That's a problem. Anybody want to help with this? Alright, before I start letting the water in, I want to show you, there are three types of stones in this lot. The top layer, the coping stones, that's sandstone. But underneath that you see 4 layers of really nicely cut and decorated limestone. But down below that, you can see the 3 layers just above the water there. That's not cut as nicely. That's a different type of stone. This limestone at the top, there's 4 layers. Those came from Marblehead and Kelly's Island. They brought them up the Maumee River on flat-bottom boats as far as they could, and then by wagon the rest of the way. But that stuff below the water line, that was quarried from the bottom of the Maumee River right across from the Leadwood Mill. The thought at the time was that limestone had been sitting underwater for thousands of years, and it would probably hold up better underwater than that stuff they pulled out of the ground at Marblehead. Well, you can't argue with them because it's still there, and we're still using it. We haven't had to repair it, although there is going to be a repair next year, I think, because we've got water. You don't see it now, but sometimes we get water coming in from some of these middle stones here, and that's not good. So we'll have to do something about that. But otherwise, everything is in good shape. So I'm going to go over here and start to let the water in. But those wicket gates that we have at the bottom of the whaler gates, when I push those things open, the wicket turns sideways. That's what lets the water in and out of the lot. And this is an example of the wicket gates. This is one of 5 that they pulled out when the Metro Parks took a backhoe here and dug this out so they could see if they could still use the lock. They found this and 4 other of these wicket gates, and 3 of them are incorporated into our whaler gates. So we're still using some of the wicket gates from the 1800s. Then we have this one, and the other one is at Johnston Farm and Village on display at their museum. But when I do that, it just turns like that. That's how the water goes in and out of the lock. So you just want to stand up here, put your toes up to the lock so you can see this. And I'm just going to open this one side, so it'll take a little longer. Now, put your attention to that moss that's growing down there. Now, there used to be a bird that would live in the rocks and make its nest on the doors here, on the gates. And it lived in the rock because all it ate was that moss that grows down on the bottom of the doors and on the rocks that are showing you. This is a living rock. There's still one or two of those birds around. So you see it. You'll be able to tell your friends you saw the use of Loch Ness Monster. Now this rock and this canal were built in the same specifications as the original Erie Canal. It was designed by some of the same people, and some of the same people who built that canal built this one too. And the dimensions of the lock are 90 feet long and 15 feet wide. And that's because the boats were all 80 feet long and 14 feet wide. So just enough room to squeeze into the locks here. This is the original lock. It's not restored, it's not rebuilt. It's the same lock that the boats were going through when they let the water in, and boats were going from here to Toledo in 1840. Now the whaler gates, those are fairly new. Those things will only last about 10 years. And our gates are 6 years old, so they're already talking about replacing them. But the stones, you know, the bones of the lock are still really good, and there are two reasons for that. One is that the specifications for these locks called for there to be a floor of hard wood like white oak on the very bottom, and then they stack the walls up. Well, after time, if they're neglected and those boards aren't replaced from time to time, the walls of the locks start to crumble. They settle and they crumble. And that didn't happen here because when they dug down, they found that the bedrock was limestone. So rather than put wood on top of limestone to stack limestone on top of, they just stacked this on the bedrock. So there's nothing to deteriorate over time and fall in. The other thing they did was in 1929, they emptied the canal from the end of our lock all the way to Toledo. They took all the water out so they could build the Anthony Wayne Trail. And so this lock was open. It was at the high water mark about where it is now. And kids were swimming in here and they were getting hurt because in the canal itself, it's only 4 feet deep. But in the lock, down below us here, there's another 12 feet of water. So it's pretty deep in here. And kids were getting hurt. So when they put the road in here in the mid-30s, they decided to just fill this in, and they filled it into the high water mark with dirt, and that helped save the lock. Because the other thing that happens, other than the walls crumbling, is they would fall inward because there's pressure out here pushing, and if there's nothing over here to push back, the walls will fall inward. That's what happened over at Sidecut Metro Park. They had to fix that. But here, they didn't have to worry about it because there was pressure on both sides. And so when they dug it out, they found that it was in pristine condition, and we were able to put water in, put the boats through. So Right, looks like it's gone up about as far as it's going to go. It means that water in the river is a little low. So then I'll open it up here. So now once I open that other side, the boat would be able to go through. Now, we talked a little bit about the mules on the boat, but the mules, when they're working, they're mostly walking, like the song said. And the hardest things that they do are pulling from a standing stop or trying to get us unstuck. If we get stuck in the canal and they try to pull us out, then they're really working. But what we do to try to ease their load is when the boat is in the lock and the door is open, we grab onto a rope, the ropes that we're tying them up, and we hitch them over our shoulders and we pull the boat. We pull the boat right up to about here, and by the time we get here, the boat's almost up to speed. And we've got somebody standing over here. That's over the tow line, and when the dollar boat comes over here, that person jumps onto the boat, hooks up the tow line, and the mules start walking. When they hear that clank of the ring going on the hook there on our bow stem, then the mules know it's time to go. And so they're already going at about 4 miles an hour at that point. So they're just walking. So they're not working all that hard. Any questions?